We're trying to get young people also to focus on becoming entrepreneurs at a different level. And as you will know, we set up the Northern Ireland Mentorship Programme last year in partnership with Invest in I, the Northern Ireland Science Park, and the American Ireland Fund. And companies like UBS, Credit Suisse, PwC, AXA, Coca-Cola, Moët Hennessy, and many others, GE, have accepted participants from universities in Northern Ireland. Our goal is to provide 25 young people per annum an opportunity to work with the leaders of these businesses and to give them the skills to come back to Northern Ireland and be leaders themselves. Only last Thursday we had a gathering of those that had already arrived in New York, those that are already working in these companies. These are incredible young kids, unbelievably motivated. They understand, they get the joke, they know what they have to do. They know this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I already know every one of them is going to be successful. They're fantastic. You have hundreds and hundreds more just like them. We're also working very closely, as I said, with Invest in I and with the government, with Arlene and her team, to try and bring more and more people in here to listen to the story. As I've said, I don't think they get enough credit. Over 4,000 new jobs were created in Northern Ireland last year. You've got 702,000 people who are actively employed at any one time. You think about that as a per capita performance. Go online and compare with any developed economy in the world and you'll see what it says. However, despite all of this optimism, I'm also a realist. So we've got to frame this against a backdrop of what's going on in the world. And let me tell you what I think is going on in the world. As we predicted last year, the economy is growing at a slow pace, and we continue to see mixed signals globally about the sustained economic recovery. On a global level, world trade volume increased by 15.7% in 2010, and is forecast at 8.3 in 2011 and 9.6 in 2012. These are encouraging numbers. Real global GDP increased by 4.5% in 2010 and is forecast to do the same in 2011 and 2012. In the US, we've just recently raised our estimates for GDP growth and performance over the last 2 months. 6-month interest rates are expected to remain at 0.5% in 2011 and rise to 0.9% in 2012. Therefore, I hope providing stimulus for the economy in order to keep employment growing. However, in terms of unemployment, it still remains above 9% and is expected to stay generally there until at least the beginning of next year. In December, 103,000 new jobs were added, which was significantly lower than the 150,000 that were initially forecast. In the capital market side, there are encouraging signs, and this is an important barometer for those companies that would consider investing in this area, because we've seen and will continue to see in 2011 a wave of consolidation in multiple sectors, and I can talk to you about which ones I think they will be. But you have $3 trillion sitting on the sideline right now today available for M&A activity alone. I'm not talking about the money that's available to run the businesses. I'm not talking about cash sitting on balance sheets that will be available for repurchase of stock or things that will go into regenerating businesses in and of themselves. I'm talking about pure capital that's available for M&A activity only. $3 trillion. That money can't stay idle for much longer. And so we believe there will be a significant amount of consolidation in multiple sectors that should ultimately benefit economies like Northern Ireland. In Europe, I think you know this, GDP will increase by about 1.5% in 2011. Interest rates will drop probably to about 0.8% and then rise again in 2012. Average unemployment is 9.6%. I personally believe that when you factor in the real economy, the real numbers, real unemployment numbers, excuse me, that number is probably much higher. Youth unemployment is a staggering 40% in Spain today, 25% in Italy. A return to normal economic conditions is going to take a very long time, given the current confidence issues being faced by the Republic of Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Greece. As governments across the continent are facing big challenges in matching their spending requirements with what's needed to make the capital budgets work in particular, the public sector will have no choice but to reduce employment, just as it's doing here. And as we know in Northern Ireland, last week it was reported that the region's GDP output for 2010 was about 0.5%, trailing the UK at 2%, and unemployment is at 7.8% and has increased in the last 2 or 3 quarters. In light of this economic uncertainty, the question is, how should you as a region react? There's no doubt in my mind that there may be severe consequences if you do not take matters into your own hands as a private sector. You need to start trying to reverse the negative economic trends. You cannot wait for change to happen in and of itself. Political change will not move quickly enough in any developed economy to meet the demands or the opportunity that presents itself today. It doesn't matter who's in power. It doesn't matter how many seats there are in Parliament. It doesn't matter how often you have political stability or instability. It's not going to move as fast as change itself. How do you take advantage of these opportunities? Because they are advantages. You have a more flexible economic profile, a more flexible economic basis, and as I've said earlier, you've got all of the factors that can help you to tackle this opportunity at a time when others are frankly floundering. The decisions you make in the next 2 years will determine what happens to this economy for the next 2 decades. Hear what I said, the next 2 decades, not the next 5, 10 years. You're in a moment of great change right now. I'm confident that the government here will continue to do whatever it can to support the private sector. I've never been I've advised, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of companies in my life. Fortunately, several of them were Fortune 500 companies. I've never actually worked in a country anywhere in the world where the private sector thought that the government was doing enough to support its work. I've never worked with a corporation, and I've worked with dozens of them, where they felt they were getting a fair deal from the people around the economy. I've never worked with a company who thought that the union was giving them a fair deal when they were doing labour negotiations. I've never worked with a labour union that thought the company was doing the opposite. We can talk about this for a long time. It doesn't really matter. Everything going on behind you is passing you out right now. It's time to stop talking. It's time to start acting. You must realise that a transformation of the Northern Ireland economy needs to take place right now. You have to be the driving force behind it. You have to take the reins of the economy and work in collaboration with the government to bring forward the proposals that will happen one way or another. I believe you're insulated as an economy because of your size and because of your geographic location and because of your profile from some, and frankly because of the way the economy is structured with the block grant from the British government, from some of the problems facing larger economies, and I believe you're in a relatively stronger position, even though, again, it doesn't feel like that to you today. Therefore, I think you can respond much more quickly, put your foot on the gas in order to take advantage of the opportunities. And you must end your dependency as an economy on public sector employment for there to be an economic evolution or revolution of the magnitude I'm discussing today. You can no longer be reliant on government spending, and you must be independent enough to be more resilient to economic downturn. It can only happen if you start to take risks again. A few months ago, the Wall Street Journal published a report that claimed that the wealthiest people in the world, which I'm rather amused by this, but it's those with over $1 million in investable assets, are hoarding over $10 trillion in cash, which they refuse to invest. As I've said, this doesn't account for the trillions more that sit in the sidelines in corporations. And as a result of the crisis in 2008, which was a long time ago really, but in the minds of many was yesterday, they're not prepared to commit cash. I believe that's going to change soon. But if it doesn't, it's a recipe for disaster. Now is the time to invest. Now is not the time to keep the cash in your pocket. If you're from Northern Ireland and you're in any one of the sectors I've mentioned, if you're not out there pounding the streets, investing in your future, at a time when the rest of the world is putting all of its money into your space, you're in trouble. This is where you need to be. You need to invest quickly on these opportunities because they're arising now, and above all, invest in the young people. I've also heard all the arguments about lending, the tightening of credit. The banks aren't lending. We can't do it if the banks don't give us the money. I've been in business 20-something years. I've been listening to this for 20-something years. Stop beating up on the banks. It's not an argument that holds any water. If you bring a proposition to a banker that will show him or her how their interest return on your investment is going to make money for the bank and get them back their capital, they will lend you the money. The reason they don't is if they don't think your business profile is appropriate, your idea is a good enough one, or that you're not going to be able to repay the money. If that's the case, you better go back to the drawing board and rethink it, because it's going to be the same anywhere you go. Folks, it's the same in America, it's the same in China, it's the same anywhere in the world. It's not just unique to Northern Ireland. Stop thinking it's a Northern Ireland problem. It's not. Banks are in business to make money. They're not a charity. So it's time to focus on the fact that this is the way the world is going to work for the next decade and beyond. For my role, I can tell you, the US government stands with you. We always have and we always will. I do anything I can to support this region every day of my life, 7 days a week. It has become a passion and almost a religion for me. I care so deeply about the things I see. I spent this morning in East Belfast in the East Belfast mission, meeting with those incredible people who are doing so much to try and improve the lot of the people who work in that area. For those of you who employ people in this place that is so important to the future of so many people in the world who are watching you to see what's going to happen, do everything you can, as President Clinton said when he was here with me in October, to give people the dignity of a job. Do everything you can to take a risk on those people because they'll work 10 times harder than someone who's had one for 10 years. And I will do anything, anything to help you do it. I can keep prodding, advising, strategizing, and selling on behalf of Northern Ireland for as long as I have the energy to do so. But the long-term growth of this economy depends on you and your government working together. There's only so much I can do, there's only so much I can say. I'm not saying I'm doing much anyway. I'm just a traveling salesman. I can bring people into the room, and after that, you're on your own. But today is the day when I think you need to start thinking about an alternative approach. Remember, while the world is falling apart all around you, that is your opportunity. Any business I ever built, I invested most of my money at a time when everybody else told me I was crazy. At a time when everybody else told me, wait, this is going to pass and then you'll make money. I started my first business with a mobile phone. I didn't have an office, I had a car seat. People said, this is not going to work, you're crazy. We sold that business for $342 million 4 years later. We employed 900 people in 28 countries. I can't even tell you how many times I took a risk and closed my eyes and bet on somebody that I just met because I liked the cut of their jib and thought they would be successful. Today is another day like that. Let us use this new year to start an accelerated path towards building Northern Ireland, a future we all know is possible. Let me say in conclusion, last Thursday marked the 5th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's inaugural speech, in which he challenged the American people to step up and give back to their country at a time when most Americans thought it was scarcely possible. That moment gave way to a dawn of a new age of American innovation and technology, which ultimately concluded with the first American man landing on the moon. I urge you with all the clarity and energy I can bring to this argument to view the world today as one of opportunity, one that can bring a great future to you in Northern Ireland. Do not take the easy path. Do not withdraw and wait for the storm to pass. Do not expect others to do it for you. Ignore the obstacles in front of you, for they are many. You can overcome them all. You're a shining example to the rest of the world in so many other ways. Now is your chance to take that one step further. Thank you for listening.